Hi, everyone. We're live. And
Hello.
we're gonna wait just a few minutes to let people get into the room. But while we're doing that, we'll have our cappuccinos. Because it is cappuccino time.
Delicious.
We're just gonna sit here and smile at you. Okay, that's it. Thanks for coming. It's late for me. It's 8 o'clock. If I'm not at work at this time, I'm sleeping. So, fortunately, I'm usually working. Here we go. I can't read, so we're going to be putting my glasses on and off all through this. Debbie Hall, welcome.
Hi.
And another Debbie. This is Debbie night. We forgot to tell you. If you're named Debbie, you get cappuccinos.
Thanks for visiting.
Bring them on the video. No, we don't want to bring you on the video because you're not prepared. Or maybe you are. Well, I had hoped to have at least 500,000 people in here on my little tiny phone. But we do have the two Debbies, so I guess we can get started. Well, maybe not. What can we talk about that the Debbies... oh, wait, what's that? That's my sister. Well, we can talk about my sister. My sister Virginia Olson is in the room. Everybody wish her a happy birthday today. She's 21 years old.
She wishes.
Good to see you too, Debbie Hall. So this is all we did. We just smile, drink coffee, wish my sister happy birthday, and that's it. Good night. Okay. Well, anyhows, we do have a few more people coming in, I'm sure.
Hello.
You know, I just want to know where my birthday cake is. And I'm sure Virginia has a big birthday cake for her and all of her, I was going to say roommates, but they're not roommates. Cellmates? No, they're not cellmates. All of her neighbors. Yes.
Neighbors is the word you're looking for.
And usually Virginia feeds the neighbors and has big parties on days like her birthday. Happy birthday, Virginia. I was going to call you today, but I didn't. No excuse. I was working online all day. We're trying to get this online stuff off the ground. We do have a YouTube channel, which I can't even tell you the name of it because it's like George Stella 92771111999, and it's not what it should be. But if you can search YouTube and find me, you'll find all of these videos on YouTube, and we plan to do more. But anyways, I think we'll just get started. I'm sure everybody here knows, all three of you, my sister included, that I'm George Stella.
And I'm Rachel Stella.
And we have been living low carb for over 25 years now. And our plan today is to go over this list of, you can't see it, this list of questions. And usually we just wing it. So we'll actually be winging the answers, but we have the questions. So the main question we get...
Also, if you have a question, you can ask us a question.
Okay, well, I'm just reading that my sister had low-carb ice cream and strawberries.
Nice.
Sarah Miller, welcome.
Hello.
We were waiting for you. Now we can get started.
Hello.
So we already introduced ourselves, but if you're here, you probably know us. Otherwise, why would you be here? I wouldn't. So we have this list of I don't know why, but it's 13 questions. Or shall we say 12, because 13 is not good. And the first question is, why did you decide to start living a low-carb lifestyle? Well, why did we decide that? It's pretty easy.
We saw someone lose a lot of weight, and we just said, we got to try this. So.
Yeah, and I would say that the why is that I was 467 pounds. I think that's what it was.
I was up there over 200 and had resolved to being the fat family because we were all overweight, all four of us.
Yeah, our son Christian at 15 years old was 300 pounds, and we actually pulled him out of school because he was being bullied. Rona Tyson, welcome.
Hello.
Just in time. Or whatever. So yeah, we did. When did you decide to start living a low-carb lifestyle? Well, it kind of chose us. I had tried all kinds of things and nothing worked. I was in a wheelchair. I had heart failure. And the doctor, the last thing I remember about when I saw a doctor before we decided to do something, he had said, if you don't lose weight, you're going to die. And then he had a nutritionist give me a foot-thick pile of papers that told me how to diet. And I went home, and like anybody would do, I opened a drawer, and I put that pile of papers in the drawer, shut the drawer, and never looked at them again. And that's because it was missing what we found out later to be the two ingredients that are needed to successfully change the way you look at food and eat. And the cat music stopped and the commercial's gone. Anyway, and that is motivation and inspiration to do so. And those papers from the nutritionist at the time, because everything is different now, at the time, going back about 27, 28 years ago, they weren't, those notes from the nutritionist weren't exciting, and they were very hard to follow, and it was restrict this, don't eat that, don't do this. And low carb was speaking my language.
Low carb is a whole different animal. You can eat anything low carb as much as you want. And if you're hungry, you're doing it wrong. You should never be hungry. You need to eat to lose weight.
Well,
and when we first started, we literally lauged.
Oh, wait, 1 second. I have to interrupt you. Question number 2, when and how did you start? Continue.
Okay. So like I said a few minutes ago, we knew someone who lost a lot of weight, and we were like, we need to try this. So Atkins says you can eat all the eggs, steak, butter, and as much as you want.
Giuliani!
And we're like, we're just going to go to buffets and eat tons and tons and tons of low-carb food, and just to see how this works. And the catch-22 is after you do low-carb for a couple weeks, you lose your appetite. Yeah, I literally had to remind myself, oh yeah, it's past lunchtime, you got to eat lunch.
So all the buffets we were going to just didn't appeal to us anymore. And then we realized that it was all about the fresh food. The same food that I had been cooking for years for my customers in the restaurants, but not eating and not serving my family. You know, the Dover soles, the Chateaubriand, the steaks, the chicken, the bacon. All of this was being, I knew how to cook it all, but I was taught don't eat the profits, and so I brought home McDonald's at the end of the night. Instead of, like today, I might bring home a nice scallop dinner, with asparagus and broccoli and
spinach.
Yeah, 5 vegetables on a plate, but all naturally low carb. So that's, excuse me, I just hit the camera. That's when and how we started. And we like to say we started laughing because Dr. Atkins' book, which was left at our house by
the person we knew that lost weight.
Right. And it literally, Rachel read it to me. It says here you can eat all the steak and bacon and eggs you want and you'll lose weight. And I said, that's the diet for me. And it turned out it was. It wasn't just for me, because once we started eating like that, we were inspiring others to do the same thing, especially our children. Okay, so let's go on with this list of questions I have so it's not a waste. How many pounds did we lose?
A lot.
A couple. I lost 265 pounds out of 467.
I lost 85.
And then Christian, who was 300 pounds at 15, lost 165 pounds. And together as a family of four, we lost 480 pounds.
I don't remember that total.
You know,
it's a lot.
It's been that long.
It's a lot.
It's been 27 years.
It's a lot. And
Okay.
it wasn't hard, because the way that we did it was, when we were craving something that wasn't low carb, we went in the kitchen and started creating new things that would satisfy us.
Yeah, that falls under my famous saying of don't do without, reinvent. You know, and that is why we have 10 cookbooks. It isn't that we plan to write even one cookbook. It's just that we wrote those recipes, and we made those recipes for ourselves, and then we shared them with you. And that is why we have 10 cookbooks, because over the last 27 years, we didn't want to let it get boring, and we kept reinventing and reinventing. And if you know me, if you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to do it. And I was told, you can't have this, you can't have that, you can't eat this. Back in the beginning, 25, 27 years ago, that's what you heard about low carb. Oh, I can't do that because you can't have bread, you can't have potatoes, you can't have pasta. And I would say that I can't, because I can. Mm-hmm. And we went on and reinvented all those things. The first thing we reinvented was Rachel's, Stella style
Cheesecake?
Yeah, our New York ricotta cheesecake. And that's what got me the show on Food Network. It got me the book deals. It was all about the cheesecake. In fact, this whole thing is my life is the cheesecake. A sugar-free, crust-free cheesecake that tastes exactly like the real thing, because why not? A cheesecake is made from naturally, besides the sugar and the crust, it's made from naturally low-carb ingredients. The ricotta, the cream cheese, the cream, the eggs. Why not? Everybody kept focusing on can't have it. I focused on I'm going to, and this is how I'm going to have it.
Right.
And that helped us be successful, and it'll help you too. Again, don't do without, reinvent. Because if you're not eating the food you love, you're just setting yourself up for failure. Okay, number 5. How did you get your kids to go low carb? I'll let Rachel answer that one.
Well, we didn't do anything. They saw how we were losing weight and eating really great food, and they just said, we got to do this. And they just went along and did the same that we did. And
Sorry.
And lost the weight with us.
Hello, Sarah. Sarah Miller's here.
Hello.
My sister Virginia just said that she lost 100 pounds, and life threw her some curveballs. She gained some of it back. But don't we all? I mean, when I got sick with Legionnaire's disease, while it wasn't cool and everybody was having COVID, I couldn't get off the couch for 6 or 8 months almost, because I couldn't breathe. My lungs had been damaged. And I gained almost 70 pounds. I'm not ashamed to admit it. But I've lost 90.
All that's gone, and more, actually.
Yeah, I'm at my lowest weight, so.
That's true.
Not quite as, no, I'm not going to make a political joke. I wanted to, but I'm not 6'1" and 215 pounds, that's all I'll say. But neither is someone else. Sorry. It's, it's a weight thing. Okay, so let's go on to question number 6. What would you recommend someone just starting out living low carb to do first? And
Carb-proof your
exactly
house.
what we did. Yep.
Go through all your pantry and take all the foods that you're not going to eat anymore and donate to to the church or anybody that could use it, your neighbor,
I mean, we're not all low carbers.
someone that would appreciate it, and then you don't have the temptation right in front of you because you moved it out of your house.
Out of sight, out of mind, and I am like a little kid, so that helped a lot. One of the things we did do for our kids is that we had a pantry and we divided it up. We put all of the low carb foods, which is in a pantry, it's almost nothing because everything's in the fridge or the freezer. And then we kept our kids' food, like the box of macaroni and cheese, 3 for $1, that Christian would get home from school and make every day. We left all that. We didn't say you can't have it because we're doing this low carb thing now. We left it. And what happened was we would go grocery shopping, come home, and we would prepare all the meals for the week in one day. That falls under our category of cook once,
eat twice,
or 3 or 4 times,
or whatever.
And then we would take samples of all that food before we froze it, and we would put it out on platters, and we'd have a buffet of our own at home. And we were at The View one time, and Barbara Walters was interviewing us, probably the proudest moment of our lives. And she asked, how did you put your kids on a low-carb diet? And I said, I can't get the kids to clean their rooms. There's no way I could put them on a diet. And Christian raised his hand because he was sitting in the front row at The View. And he said, I'll answer that. And he said, I saw how good my parents were eating, and I couldn't resist. And so, yeah. So that 3 boxes of macaroni and cheese looked good until he saw what the alternative was. And the alternative was all that wonderful fresh food. And
we have a really delicious recipe made with cauliflower and tons of cheese, and it's a good substitution for macaroni and cheese. So, like I said, don't do without, reinvent.
Yeah, the mashed potatoes too, don't forget that. And the cauliflower rice that you can now buy in a bag, frozen.
Yeah, there's a lot of different options in the grocery store these days that weren't available a long time ago. And so it's a little bit easier with the low carb options, but be careful because sometimes it sounds low carb, but you have to read the ingredients because they still may add sugar or some carb ingredient that you just don't want to add at this time.
Sarah says she made our cheesecake.
It's good.
So the rest of that story I'll end with is, while we were doing that buffet thing once a week, usually we did it. We did it religiously instead of going out to buffets, because this way we knew exactly what was in the food and it was all fresh. Our kids' friends who were overweight, I mean, I can think of 2 in particular, lost a lot of weight. Like one lost 100 pounds. And then next thing I know, I see his mother and she's lost 100 pounds. And what it was is...
And kept it off.
It's a inspirational thing. It was motivation for them. She saw... my son's friend saw what they did, what we did, and then his mother saw what he did. And then at that point, we realized we've got to tell more people, as many people as we can. And that's when I knew we needed to have a book. I knew I needed to be on the Food Network. Everybody thought I was crazy.
Neighbors were asking us, how'd you do it? How'd you do it? And people...
It was... We made a couple of appearances when we were just, we weren't known by anybody. We had done nothing, and we did make a couple of appearances, and we got bombarded like as if we were rock stars. I remember one time at Burdine's in Miami, in the Dadeland Mall. We were in the, the kitchenwares department, and we did a cooking demo, and it was just us trying to get out there. And that was one of our first events, and that event told us what we knew, and that was that we were onto something. So
Virginia says you can buy cauliflower rice at the dollar store for $1.25. That's a good tip. Thank you, Virginia.
Let's keep on going. Let's see here. Question number 6 that people want to know. We already did them. Let's go to 7. What was the hardest thing to give up on low carb? Wage?
Everybody's hardest thing, bread. But, like I said before, you just choose a low carb option and eat as much as you want. That's the diet that anybody loves. Eat as much as you want. No restrictions if it's very low carb.
If you do things differently, you won't miss the bread at all. But in the beginning, I mean, all these things that you are missing, the bread, the potatoes, the rice, the sugar, they're very addictive and very powerful, and your mind has to replace them before you can get rid of them. In other words, you can't just say, I'm not going to ever eat that again, and then have nothing
on
to
The
eat
View,
instead
I
of
said,
it.
just smell it, don't eat it.
That's
just
true.
smell the bread,
Yeah, they
and
laugh.
everybody got mad at me.
Yeah.
Because that would make it even more difficult to smell it and not
But we
eat
learned we could appreciate food and not have to eat it all the time. And right now people think I'm Mr. Low Carb, and I'm not going to. They for a long time they were afraid to mention that they eat anything that wasn't low carb around me, and I'm like, well, I love that food. I'm a chef. I love all foods. If you know me from watching the Food Network when I had Low Carb and Lovin' It, my show, I would always say, I'd hold up a mushroom and go, oh, these are my favorite. Or I'd hold up some chicken wings. Oh, I love chicken wings. They're my favorite. Everything was my favorite. So if you have to give up something, just replace it. Again, don't do without, reinvent. Okay, here we go. Number 8. How many carbs a day did you consume while losing the weight? Well, I have an answer for that. But you can go ahead.
First of all, I think it was a couple weeks or even a month where we didn't count carbs because we didn't know what we were doing yet. But then after we studied the Atkins book and saw that you should do 20 carbs a day in the beginning if you're very overweight, you want to lose the weight. So then we started restricting ourselves to the 20 or so carbs. And I don't know how long we did that for, but once you are at what you consider your ideal weight, you can add good whole grains food back in that's, like in the middle, like it's not too high of a carb, and it's good for you. I eat oatmeal in the morning sometimes, and that's not going to make me fat because I'm 120, 125 pounds, somewhere in there. And it's good for you. So that's what I do sometimes.
But it's not, if you're just starting out.
That's way after losing the weight.
Maintenance.
That's way, I didn't do that till I was what I considered a good weight for many years. And now I can do it. But
Welcome, Lori. Now, this counting thing is a big deal because people get obsessed with counting. And I've got a whole dissertation here called Down with Counting. I'm just going to read a couple lines of it. One of the biggest downfalls is that people watching carbohydrates, they're urged to count them. All carbs, or even foods for that matter, are not created equal, so you can't always go by the numbers. And, I never understood. I wouldn't sit down and eat my dinner with a calculator, so I don't want to have to count carbs. But for most of my weight loss, I was figuring that I was eating 30 carbs. So, but I wasn't.
is it low carb? I'll eat
Yeah.
it. If it's not low carb, don't eat it.
I never kept a log of how many carbohydrates I was actually eating.
We didn't obsess with the counting, in other words.
But I realize now that my success had mostly to do with choosing the right, good, naturally low carb foods. And once I knew what those were, I didn't have to count, because carb counting are arbitrarily reached numbers. And everybody looks at them differently, counts them differently. But one thing that never changes is the wonderful fresh food, the same food that our ancestors raised, grew, bartered, traded, and cooked and ate, and we didn't have an obesity problem. So there's more, but I'm not going to read it. All right, let's go on. How many calories a day did you consume? And then, do calories matter on low carb? I have changed my thoughts on that a little bit.
I think Christian, towards the end of losing his weight, when I thought he looked great, and he had lost a lot of weight, and I thought he was like doing really good and looking really good, and he was not done losing weight. He wanted to lose more weight, and he did count calories and carbs.
That's right. And you know what? That became a thing, for people getting to the final weight loss, the last 5 or 10 pesky pounds.
If you want to lose like the end of your road, and you just need that a few more pounds that you want to get rid of, and you're having trouble with that.
I never counted calories because I wouldn't count carbs, so I'm not going to count calories. I just, as a matter of fact, I tried to figure out how many calories I was eating when we first started out, and I lost track at 5,000 a day. I swear I'm not making that up. But I had a lot of weight to lose at 470 pounds. So anyway, this isn't a low-calorie diet, but it could be low carb, low fat, low calorie, and low fat isn't the best either. But when you're fine-tuning and want to get those 5 or 10 down, what's Rick saying? Rick's an old friend.
What are your thoughts on intermittent fasting along with low carb?
It works. And I'll tell you, I found that out by accident. Now it's a big deal. But for me, it was, okay, I'm going to confess. I was on QVC for 17 years selling cookbooks. And at times a few failed pots and pans. But Rachel will tell you, besides the fact that she fed me salmon every day for a week so that I had good-looking skin, because you got vitamin E, right, in the salmon, is that what it is? Healthy for your skin. 3 days.
Dr. Oz said if you're going to make an appearance, eat some salmon because that.
I didn't do it because Dr. Oz said it, okay? We were on Dr. Oz one time, but that's all I'll say. You know what? He's a really nice guy, but his producers are the ones that tell him what the show is going to be. But that's a whole nother story. I never watched the show, and because I don't believe in things like that. But what was I talking about? Oh, I'm confessing. Whenever I was going to be on television, whether it was QVC or making an appearance or whatever, which at the time I was doing quite a bit of that, for 3 or 4 days before, I would fast because I had to fit into my skinny clothes. And I had these specific clothes for wearing on TV. This way I knew that I was the same weight I had been the last time I was on TV. But, you gain 5 pounds here, you lose 5 pounds there. Everybody fluctuates. And so to make sure that I could fit into my clothes, even though I'm Mr. Low Carb, I fasted. And it worked. And then afterwards, right back to low carb, and it kickstarts your metabolism. So, yeah, I guess I do believe in it. I used to say I didn't, but I know it works because I was doing it my whole career. And like Dr. Oz, I had to weigh 205 pounds because that's what I told them I weighed. And sure enough, they had to scale in the dressing room, in the green room, backstage, and they made us get on it. Because they didn't want us going on. Imagine that Dr. Oz didn't, the Dr. Oz show, I won't say him because it's not him personally, didn't want us lying. Oh yeah, and they also wanted to, they wanted us to take our clothes off while we got weighed, and I just said, get out of here. Just leave. Okay. Okay, so that's my thoughts are, yes, if it works for you, it's great. I wouldn't make it a big part of my regime. Okay, next. How did you get your TV show, Low Carb and Lovin' It, on the Food Network? You don't have enough time for me to tell you.
I think we told that story in the last
We did, and it never gets old. But I will, let's see. Well, first of all, I knew I had to be on the show. What I didn't know was that I was crazy for thinking that. Everybody told me I was, but you can't tell me anything. You tell me no, I got to do it. So I did it. It took years. We started out locally as the Low Carb Chefs on Orlando's Fox 35 weekends as they had cooking segments. On the news. And then I started pitching everybody. We got on The View nationally.
Fox in New York.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Then we started doing Fox. And again, we're saying Fox.
On Father's Day.
Let me qualify. Fox was a really popular, respected kind of network 20 years ago, 25 years ago, maybe. It was like 20 years ago. Today, honestly, if they asked me to be on, I wouldn't go. But I'm not political. I just have what I like and what I don't like, and that's not one of my favorite shows. But we did it, and it helped us to get known. And after pitching the Food Network for over a year, we broke into the Food Network offices in downtown Manhattan with a cheesecake. We really did. We broke in. We went unannounced. We were dressed as the low-carb chefs, and we were carrying one of our cheesecakes in a soft-sided cooler. And we went into the skyscraper on Avenue of the Americas in Manhattan right after, right after 9/11. And they wouldn't let anybody in unless you had an appointment. And they said, "You have an appointment?" We said, "No, we have a cheesecake." And they said, "Go up." Well, it happened to be lunchtime, noon, and all these pizza and fast food delivery guys had these soft-sided coolers, and they were all being let up into the building. We didn't even plan it like that. And then the doors opened up, and it wasn't a hallway like we thought it would be. It opened up right into Food Network Studios. The vice president of Food Network, executive vice president, saw us. She came. We hadn't even gotten out of the elevator, and she goes, "What are you doing here?" And she said, "Come with me." And we're like, we had no idea what was going on. We went into her office. She closed the door. She leaned on her desk with both hands and said, "I can't believe you're standing here in my office in the middle of Manhattan." And she goes, and we said, "Well, we give. What's up?" She goes, "I was on the train platform with you this morning in Hastings-on-Hudson." "Hey, Rebecca." That's an old friend, Rebecca Dias. Nice to see you. And she goes, "I wanted to talk to you. I know who you are." I know how she knew because I was pitching them for a year before. But I wanted to talk to you, but I thought you'd think I was a crazy old lady, so I didn't. And then you show up unannounced in my office in Manhattan that day. And she was freaked out. We talked to her about low carb like we are with you. We motivated her. We inspired her. The next time we saw her, she had lost about 100 pounds. Her daughter had lost about 100 pounds. And they did it on Weight Watchers, not low carb. But she told me that after we left her office, that one meeting, that one day in Manhattan by accident.
Motivation.
She said, a light bulb went off in my head, and I just knew I could be successful at what she was used to doing, which was Weight Watchers. And back then, they weren't doing low carb at Weight Watchers like they do today. And she goes, it was the motivation and inspiration. So she knew there was something up. It wasn't about low carb and loving it as a TV show. It was about inspiring everybody to do what they thought was best for them and what worked for them. It worked for her, and that's the simplest version of it. But after that, there was another year of screen tests, focus groups in California, budgetary approvals, and finally, I got the show. Okay, now we're out of time. Anybody have any questions? Because I'm just going to keep going on with the questions that we wrote down from everybody else. How many low carb cookbooks have you written? You know?
Is it 10?
It's 10. And we've contributed to half a dozen others. How many? Oh, that's the same one. How do you handle the cravings associated with low carb? Well, we have to go back and think way back because I don't have cravings for anything that isn't low carb.
I remember the first Halloween. That was difficult. Handing out candy to the kids. But I didn't eat any of it. I stuck to the low carb regimen. And like I said in the past, after you do it for a while, your appetite decreases. You have to remind yourself to eat because you don't have an appetite if you don't eat the carbs. The carbs are what drive the appetite out of you.
Yeah, and once you get rid of sugar for the first couple of weeks, sugar is one of the most addictive substances in the world. It's been related to the addiction of heroin. And once you can get rid of them, get away from sugar or the white stuff, which is sugar in your body, for 2 weeks, you start to replace the cravings with other foods. And that's why we reinvented a lot of desserts. I mean, we didn't even want to eat the desserts because we had gotten rid of the sugar addiction. What else? How did cravings? Okay. What would you tell someone who says they are bored on low carb and that they're tired of eggs and bacon and bunless burgers?
Buy our books and make some new recipes. There's a lot of recipes in 10 books, and you will find something that interests you, and then you won't be bored on a low-carb diet.
Yes, Rebecca has every book, and I know that. My first book was a paperback that I made at Kinko's, and I actually had them bind it and put a cover on it, and the inside pages were completely blank. It was just a cover and a fake prop book.
We used that
I put
on Fox News in New York.
I would put it on the table, and then one of the hosts picks it up one day, and he goes, "Oh, you've got a new book out," and he says this live on the air, and he flips through it, and he goes,
"Okay."
And he puts the book down like this, and just puts it down, and goes, "Okay," and we moved on. But the name of that book was, the name of the book, because I don't know anything about naming a book, and I like the title. It said, "Never Be Bored Again on a Low Carb Diet. Tested and Proven Recipes by the Low Carb Chefs." That was the title. It fit from one end of the cover, the top to the bottom. And but everything that we did is based on that. And, that was the criteria for everything. Hey, what else we got here? Would love a new one. Debbie, I would love to write a new book, I think it's time. And this is all part of that. If we can finally get something going here and on YouTube and be able to do this, I could maybe stop working the hotline at Margaritaville Resorts. And by the way, if you want to come and have me cook you dinner, say hello even, and watch me spin on one leg and toss pans. I work at night at the Wharf Seafood Restaurant, the Wharf, at Margaritaville in Orlando, which is actually in Kissimmee. I don't know why they call it Margaritaville Orlando. It's called Margaritaville. It's called the Wharf at Sunset Walk. And I'm usually there Mondays through Thursdays, 6 to 11. And that's where I get all these mussels. I got a couple. One. That's the only one.
And they want to know how they can buy the books.
Go to my Facebook site, because we don't put the ad up for too often. We don't always have them. Go to the Facebook site, and you'll see right below our post for this video today, a couple posts down, you'll see the post on how to get the books. Rebecca, what are you going to do? Working to see if we can get you to come to Denver to cook dinner. Okay, Rebecca, I would love to come to Denver. I can tell you a story about Denver. I was on my way doing something for Scripps Howard Broadcasting, the parent company of Food Network, and I was on my way home, and they said, "George, can you go to Denver and be on a show with Charlie Ergen?" And Charlie Ergen is the owner and creator of the Dish Network. And at the time, Dish was super big. And I said, sure. So I flew right over to Denver, went on the Charlie Ergen show, which, at night. And I had no idea how powerful and how important a man Charlie Ergen is, because I look at everybody as they're equal. They're the same. I don't care if you're a billionaire or a dollaraire. So I was on his show, and I was Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky. Everything was fun to me back then. I was having a good time, and I was sitting on his show with a panel of guests. And off to the side was like a jury of people that worked for Charlie Ergen, and they all looked really nervous. They didn't want to make one mistake, or this guy would have them. I didn't see him like that. I thought he was a nice, fun-loving guy. I had just been backstage with a Boy Scout or Cub Scout troop that came in to see the Dish Network studios, and I was talking with them. And turns out, I think his son was part of that Cub Scout troop, so he liked me for being nice to them. Why wouldn't I be nice to him? It was fun. And I'm on the show, and he said something about how good I looked or something. I got up from the panel of guests on one end, way away from Charlie. Charlie was separate. And I ran over there on live his live show and kissed him. You should have seen his people that were sitting, like I said, they were like a jury, like 6 or 8 people. They had their notebooks and they were typing and they were on the phone. And I'm like, and they just were all having heart attacks. And I was like, what did I do? I just kissed Charlie Ergen, and he's not a touchy-feely kind of guy, but he was to me. So yeah, I'd love to come to Denver. That's what I remember of Denver. What's Rebecca saying? The current dish building is a half mile from my house.
Whoa.
Yeah, with I remember all the rockets, the satellite rockets that are like all around and inside the building. It's still cool to me today, but everything back then, I was in a wheelchair with heart failure at 470 pounds. I wasn't out gallivanting or traveling the country. So when I got to do that, that was cool. That was fun. It only, and it still was fun right up till, going to QVC sometimes 15 times a year in Pennsylvania from Florida. Okay, well, I've gotten off on a tangent, haven't I?
8:41.
Oh gosh, we swear we're
talking
gonna
for a long time.
We were gonna do this for 15 minutes so that we could put it up on YouTube as a short. But then Christian told me we can just cut it into portions and post it as several different ones. But I don't know how to do that. So for right now, you got us, and it's 45 minutes. Is there anything anybody would like to know?
Before we go,
Yeah. I wish you would comment on your post.
We'll do another chat on Sunday. Do
Lori,
know what time on Sunday?
Lori, 1 second. Lori, you wish who would comment on the post? Me? Tell me what I have to comment on, Lori, because I'd love to do it. And yes, we're going to, all right, here we go. Low carb or no carb tortillas, the small one, 0 carbs. Place very thin around a tortilla, spreading it thin. See more, hold on. It's my sister. Ketchup. Okay, I hope everybody else can read that because it's just too long. Sorry, Virginia. Hey, even Red Robin has burgers in lettuce wraps. Everybody does that now. And they're good. They use like a half of a head of iceberg lettuce to make one burger wrap. Wow. I worked at Red Robin. Busted my butt. That's why I got a couple muscles now. But anyways, Sunday. Yeah, we're going to be back on Sunday because I'm off. I got to work tomorrow. So thank you for all your inspiration. You're welcome, Rebecca. Thank you for always being a friend. You've been a really great friend, and we appreciate it. I have to keep putting these on Debbie Hall's post. I'm supposed to. Let me see. What was that post? Debbie, are you here? Debbie Hall? Well, let me see if I can scroll through it before we get off of here. You guys don't mind that I'm a mess here, do you? How do I get started when I don't have willpower? I have diabetes. Eat. Debbie, this is your answer. You can get started by eating wonderful fresh food and eat until you're full.
Eat a lot.
Until you're satisfied. But choose very low carb, naturally low carb foods. And if you have to have sweets, look at our books. I bet you have some because every book has
mixed berry muffins for
sweets.
breakfast is delicious.
Oh, here we go. You can make these. And they're really easy. They're a dump and mix recipe.
Simple.
I mean, here's the 4 eggs, 2 cups of almond flour.
And now you can buy almond flour
vanilla,
at the
baking
grocery
powder,
store. Very
blueberries.
reasonable. Aldi's has it very, very inexpensive. And in the beginning, we would have to buy the almonds and crush them in the food processor because they didn't sell it in the store yet.
Also, email me at thegeo.stella, THEGEO Stella @gmail.com, and I will send you cookbook downloads with all the recipes if you don't have them. And I'll also talk to you anytime you need inspiration to help you get started. So just email me. And if anybody wants to help us to keep doing this, we have a Patreon site. This is it right here, patreon.com/George Stella. This will enable us to move away from this kitchen table into the kitchen and start cooking for these videos, which it turns out it costs money. And then if you don't want to go to sign up for our Patreon, you can just do it direct here at paypal.me/George Stella. Okay. And that's about it. That will help us so that we can continue on and keep doing this and get better at it. So
Thanks for any donations.
thank you all for being here for our third time trying this. And we'll see you on Sunday. Bye.